Hello and welcome to another live demonstration. So as you've seen maybe in the past few sessions, we've had a studio audience. So again, we've got a studio audience. So I'll say hello from me and hello from the audience. This will be a three-part demo. So we'll start on the first session and start to build up colour and gradually move on to the final piece in the third session. So I'm going to be using the Derwent ProColour Pencils. These were brought out, I think, last year as a new range for Derwent. And what I like about them is you're able to get a really nice point and the core's quite hard. And what I mean by hard is that you can push really hard and it doesn't break, which, you know, you find some pencils crumble, but this is really, I find it does. You can put quite a lot of pressure on and you're not breaking the core. So that's one thing I like about them. These are wax-based coloured pencils and I find they give you a really nice laydown of colour. So I'm lucky I've got the whole set and I'll just pick up colours as I'm going along. So what I'm going to be doing is an iguana, and I have iguana facts for you. What I've done is I've drawn this down using a white pastel pencil because, where's my pencil gone? No. What I was going to show you is, I had the pencil somewhere.
What kind of pencil?
A graphite. Probably, I've got it. Here, I have a pencil. What I was going to show you, that if you draw down using a graphite pencil, what I find is that the coloured pencil resists the graphite. So if you want to go over it, it will tend to resist and you're left with the ghost image of the graphite, because graphite does resist covering. It's that silky graphite feel. So if you're using a graphite and you've used it as an outline, I find it's difficult to get rid of if you need to alter as you're drawing, which is why I've used a pastel pencil. And I've managed to sharpen it nice and sharp using the Derwent long point pencil sharpener, which I'll be using on all my pencils. You can get this lovely sharp point. And I just want to show that you can also get the same point with a pastel pencil. You have to be a little bit more delicate, a little bit softer turning the handle, but you can still get this point. And then it's really nice to be able to sketch out using this. Another great thing is, if I wanted to, I can lift it off, soften, take down, or even erase, which you can't do easily with a graphite underneath. So that's the reason I've done it. What I did find was when I was erasing, you can actually also erase the ProColours, which I found very useful. Using black Frisk cartridge paper, I think this is 135 gram in the big pad. It's kind of got a nice surface that holds the colour, but it's not too rough. So you're able to layer and you're able to get your colour down well. So sketch this down, just decided on the lines I'm using. The original image, I think the iguana's got it looks like a sausage in its mouth, but I'm taking that out. It's not going to work. It's more difficult to explain in a drawing why. So what I can do is make that the tongue. And this is what you do when you're using a photograph. You try and understand are people going to see once you've drawn out or painted your picture. Are they going to understand it? And I know the context of the photo and I know where it was taken and why he had a sausage in his mouth, but you won't see that on a drawing. So use the photo as a reference, as a starting point. Now, what is also interesting is I will end up holding all my pencils in one hand. It's something I tend to do. And I'm not sure what colours I'm going to use. I'm just going to use colours as I go along. The colours alter on the black. So a colour is very different. So this is called lime, but it works really nicely on the black. It kind of alters enough that it can get really good shadows and it's not too bright. So what I did do on a piece of black is do swatches of all the colours. Then I have a fairly good idea of what they're going to look like. I'm going to start with the eye because I'd like to move out and I want to alter the shape of this anyway. So I'm just putting down a layer for now. And the great thing about coloured pencils is you're able to work over, alter, go back in, constantly move and manoeuvre what you're doing. So that I'm also working black. So I'm having to remember to leave areas black. I can use the black pencil at the end, but why do I need to? You've got the black already there. So I'm having to think about leaving black areas. So if you're working on the white paper, as you would do in a watercolour, you're often thinking about the white areas you want to leave. In this case, I'm thinking of the black areas. Now, just putting colour down. I'm not overly worried about what colour I'm putting down. This will come later. I can alter and manipulate later. I'm just making sure I'm getting a nice shape. And this white is a bit harsh for me, so I'm just going to take it down. I want to use it as a guide and not overpowering. I put it on quite hard so you could see it, and I wasn't going to lose lines that I'd put down, but normally I wouldn't put it on this strong. And then there's a line here. Now this may be too bright, but it's just helping me find those lines. So this is over the ridge of the eye. It's very light here, so I want to lighten that a little bit. And with the coloured pencils, I find that I draw slightly differently to I do using a watercolour, whereas you can put the colour on, get a base layer. Same with acrylic, and then build up detail. Often with a pencil, I like to build up detail as I'm going along. You can come back into it, but it's a very different way of working. It's much more relaxed and slightly slower. You'll see I have a lot of colours in my hand and that I hold them with the ends facing you rather than the bottoms, because as much as they have tried to replicate the colours on the bottom of the pencil, it doesn't always give you a true idea of the colour. So I will turn them round and I'm looking at the edges. One thing about these is they're round, so they tend to roll off, which is why I'm holding on to them. Now with coloured pencils, I'm just picking up any colour I think of that will work, and that could be a blue, a green, a purple. You can add lots of colour to the iguana. One thing I did learn about this iguana, which I think is a green iguana, is that though this one's green, the other ones come in lots of different colours. They can come in from browns to oranges to purples. So, to be honest, it makes it so much easier when you're putting the colour on, because no one's seeing your original picture. So this is very flat. I know that they come in all these different colours, therefore why not use that? I can add a bit of brown and purple. So this is more of a plotting and planning. I'm not overly looking at detail yet. This side on the nose is a little bit greyer. And I often put colour down in this swirly action, especially when you've got an iguana like this or a lizard, because it gives you some texture. You don't always have to smooth over the full colour. And because it's a photograph, again, the colour may have altered a little bit. It may not quite be a true colour for the lizard. It doesn't matter. This is where you can adapt and move what you want to see.
Anita,
Yes.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Why did the iguana have a sausage in his mouth?
I think what it is, this is a picture taken in the Florida Keys by Emily. And I think it was just eating food that it found around the pool, swimming pool. So that's why.
So it was wild iguana, it wasn't in a zoo, it was just...
Yeah, iguanas, these, I've seen them because I've been to Miami, and they're everywhere. What you have to look out for, you hear this thud behind you as you're walking along, and you have great big iguanas falling out the tree. You know, you expect little birds to hop down from trees in the UK, but great big green iguanas just jump down from the trees. They actually spend most of their time in the trees and come down occasionally because there's less predators in the trees. Or if it gets really cold, apparently they freeze because they're cold-blooded and they drop down and they fall from the trees. So yeah, this is obviously adapted to knowing that there's food around the pool and has been taking food this way. Because they're actually herbivores, mostly they eat plants, but will take eggs. But they've obviously adapted to eating human food, which apparently isn't very good for them, but this one's obviously doing well enough. So it's looking a little strange at the moment. It's not finished, but you can see how you can start to build up colour. I don't want to go too dark to start with. Do I want a blue-green? It's just such a nice way. You just pick up a colour. So here, it's a little bit darker. So I've used the lighter green here, and you can see the 3 greens there. I'll probably drop in a bit of blue. And I have no plan. Really, I have no plan about where the colour's going to go. I'm constantly looking at the photo in front of me for reference. But other than that, I'm just picking up a colour as I feel it would work. A bit of blue. So grey, blue in the back, and see how that mixes on the page. Like I say, I use this swirly kind of action. It just works to get the colour down and give me a little bit more texture. Green. So unlike with a paint, it is a little bit more difficult to mix your colours on the paper. So blue and yellow will make a green, but it won't make a nice clean green. So actually, let's have a try. Because I've got so many pencils in my hand. They're going to roll off. Okay, let's try yellow and a blue. So put the blue on and put your yellow on. And you see they do create the green, but it's not always the green you're looking for. And that's why you have lots of colours in your pencils.
Anita,
But actually that's quite nice. I'm going to actually go for that. I like that blue haze that you're getting. So let's drop in some of that blue
Anita,
on here. Yes, Gary.
Sorry to interrupt. Question from Chrissy, who's watching in Australia. She wants to know, and I know you don't like doing comparisons and what have you, what are your top 3 coloured pencils that you like to use?
So what are the top 3 coloured pencils I like to use? Now, I don't do comparisons. I think it is totally up to the user to decide. It is so subjective. I do get to use lots of pencils, luckily. I like these, like I say, because of the really strong core, and I'm quite abusive with them. But I will say the top 3 coloured pencils I like. I'm not going to do brands, but I will go from what I like. So watercolour pencil, probably the first, because it is got so many different uses. So I would always recommend a watercolour pencil. People will often ask, oh, which is the best coloured pencil to use? Or I'm starting off, or for kids, watercolour pencils. Because you can put them down like a pencil, use them that way, but you've got the added benefit of being able to put water on them. And then you can scrape bits and splatter. So top would probably be a watercolour pencil. Now, there are two types of coloured pencils. One is, they both have wax and oil in them, but some have more wax than oil and some have more oil than wax. So they're often called an oil coloured pencil or a wax coloured pencil. And there is a difference when you use them. You can feel the difference. Now, these are wax and they're harder. You can feel the hardness of them, which is great for layering and getting this tiny little details. You see, I'm using a lighter colour on top and being able to just add that little bit, and I'm pushing quite hard. And then you've got your oil pastel pencils, which they are a little bit more creamy and they're lovely again for layering. So I'm not going to say which brand. It literally is what you prefer. Maybe a good idea is to get one colour of a number of brands and see which ones you prefer that way, rather than going to the big expense of getting a whole set. But I think with any pencil or medium, you make it do what you want it to do. So, you know, does it work as well on the black paper? Do you get the good instant colour? So you can get trial sets, you can get sets that give you one or two of different types of pencils to choose for yourself. So thank you for that question, but I'm not going to, because I try so many, it's really difficult to say, yeah, that's my favourite, because my favourite is the one that's happening at the time. It's not always, I always go to that same brand. I will swap and change so regularly. It's actually a really difficult thing to answer. So I'm jumping around because this is going to be very green. I'm just now picking up some of the pink. And what I'm going to use is, like I said, I'm going to drop this as a tongue now and change that. And what I'm going to use is the black. So you have the black as the shadow. And let's try and add a little bits of colour and keep that dark area there as the inside of the mouth. And like I say, the great thing about this is the amount of, oh, the pencil's gone, the amount of fluffing that you can do. So, you know, with a watercolour, you kind of have to do it and trust that it's going to work. You can alter it a little bit, but with coloured pencils, you can go over a place and then go over again, and this is really gets that fiddling, fluffing kind of mentality that you get to sometimes out of your onto the paper. So because you can just keep going, I just add a little bit here and a little bit there. You can see how well that sharpened. I was doing it quite slowly because the core could be damaged. It's so easy to do. Let me pick up a little bit of fresh pink. What I will do once I've finished this is I will put all the colours back in the right place. It's something I don't like to leave. I like all my numbers facing upwards. You wouldn't think that, the mess I make when I'm actually drawing, but when I'm putting it away, I like it to be put away properly. I'm going to add some purple. That's nice. I'm not always sure which is going to work or how it will work. It's often kind of an instinct, but that worked well because a purple is a shadow colour and will allow me to add shadow on. So under the chin it's got a slight bit of grey, and this sky blue with the black, it gives it a much greyer colour. I'm just looking at the folds on the dewlap. So this is the dewlap. And both male and female have them. The male uses it for display. And the female, both for the gender, use the dewlap for temperature regulation. So cold-blooded, they use this to help regulate the temperature. So I'm just adding a little bit of texture there because you can see that a little bit more. So putting colour down, that's just a first layer. A lot lighter here, and there's a lighter bit here and here. It helps me to see where I'm going. So lighter under here, and let's put some lighter on here. Okay, so what else can I tell you about the lizard? I need to go into the eye, but I'll come back to that. The iguana. So these green iguana, I do know the scientific name, but so did Gary. It's iguana, which I thought was quite funny. I didn't find out what a male or female iguana is called. I did look, but I didn't find out. Do know that these are quite long-lived. They live to about 20 years or so. Predators are birds of prey, and they have what is called a third eye. Now, it's not an eye because it doesn't have a lens. What it is on the back of the head here, I think, around here, there's a sensory gland. And what it does is it allows them to feel, I suppose, movement and light. So it also helps to sense that. So they actually have that third eye. Okay, under here. Grey bit here. Under here. So the green lizard comes in so many different colours, like I've said before. That's what's bothering me. I'm trying to work out what's bothering me with the eye. It's the initial layer of the pastel pencil I put down. What it's doing is it's just giving me that white area, which I don't want. And now I can darken and alter, really shape the eye a little bit better. If the eye isn't right for me, it's something that I get drawn back to. So I do like to make sure I fix it, I suppose. Drop of light. Can get a little. Okay. For me, I can come back to that, but for me, at the moment, that's looking okay. Right, let's start and add some little bit more detail, little bit more colour. So like I say, this is in 3 sessions, so I have time to go back and come and do all the other areas, and hopefully it'll come together right at the end. This, I didn't know what this bit was. They all have it. It didn't really specify what it was, and hopefully someone will be able to tell me. So they have between about 14 and 75 eggs, which I thought was a huge amount of eggs. And I did read somewhere that the babies are left to their own devices, but then I also read that they grow up in family groups. So I'm not sure. And that the green iguana has been known to protect the female from predators by putting his body over the female to protect her. But most of the time they actually do live quite independently. They like to be independent.
Okay, about the
Yeah.
names.
Yes?
Because the word iguana is derived from a Spanish word.
Yeah.
Some Spanish-speaking
Yeah.
countries
I saw that, but I wasn't going to attempt to say
call the male a gorobo.
a gorobo, and the female was a...
No, there wasn't a female.
There was, it was a garita or something like that.
And juveniles are called a gorobita.
A gorobita. See, I wasn't going to attempt... I did see that, but as my Spanish is not a language I speak, I wasn't even going to attempt and make a hash of the language. So, but
The pronunciation was perfect. What are you about?
I wouldn't. It's not perfect. Not what I would say was perfect. Okay, so I've just put a layer of the blue down because that's going to give me a nice base for altering the greens that I'm seeing. So what colour is this? Kingfisher blue. And like I say, on the white paper, it's probably going to be quite nice and bright. But on the black, it just gives me this different quality. So another thing about coloured pencils is the surfaces they can go on. They can go on lots of different coloured surfaces. So being able to not just depend on a white surface is really handy with a coloured pencil. But with anything, you test, you try, you see how they work before. And that's all part of the experimental process. You may find that these work great on wood, you know, a nice smooth piece of wood. They're waterproof, so they won't move with water. You can move them. You move them with a solvent or a brush blender. So there's special mediums which will dissolve the wax and enable it to be moved. Or you can blend and soften using something like a tortillon. I preferred to do this using the pencil on top of pencil on top of pencil, so layering. That's how I actually prefer to mix my colours or blend or soften. But there are lots of other techniques that can be used for this. Let's put the blue on here as a base layer. So not much detail yet, and I'm quite liking the different colours that are coming out. Oh, I want to put some purple in. Just want to mix it up a little bit. So let's put some, what colour is this? Heather. Just feeling it's very green and blue. Oh, that's nice. And it doesn't have to be strong, it doesn't have to be totally altering. But sometimes a colour like this violet is probably the colour you're trying to achieve, but you're trying it with a different colour. The mouth needs some darkening. I've gone too hard. Just by darkening that inside of that mouth, it's just pushed the tongue back. What colour have I got? Grape. So this must be a very dark purple, which means I can get some of those little details. And yeah, I jump around. I don't have a plan. I tend to jump around. Doesn't make it easy for Gary, but he keeps up.
Keep me on my toes.
It does, yeah. This is just me thinking about where I want to go next. I don't actually completely think about the colours. So I pick up a colour, see it works, we'll move it around. And I'm constantly looking at the photo just to look at where some lines are, where some shadow is. So I can darken this little bit off. And this is probably working better than if I was using a black. It comes around here. It's quite dark under here. But it has some nice little light features. And it's sometimes just a tiny mark which really helps to bring it together. So again, that swirly motion, it's just something I do. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong. You can use it that way. I just like that swirly motion to soften and to kind of blend on the page. Yes?
About 10 minutes left.
About 10 minutes left. Okay. Like I say, you can just keep going over. Okay, so that's darkened that area in here. Right, so it's quite dark down here, but I need light. So quite light here, and some lighty orange, greeny bits here. Just drop in this lime colour on top. That can bring, looking at the shape, looking at where it is lightest and where it's darkest. Did we find out what this is? No. So light blue. So lots of layering. And what it does need is a dark, it has a very prominent dark area around the outside. I'm not using black, I'm using burnt carmine because it's the one I picked up. Just add some more of that into. Black I think is a bit harsh for now. And then it has some detail here.
Oh, here we
There's
go.
some scales.
Sorry. So it's called a subtympanic shield.
And what does it do?
I don't know, I ain't got a clue.
Okay. Well, that's a little bit more detail because I couldn't find it, not on the general pages I was looking at.
It could be some sort of armour, some sort of protection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, well, subtympanic is under its ear then, isn't it? So
Yeah.
it's under ear shield to stop his ears getting hurt, maybe. I don't know.
And ear protectors.
There you go.
So it's wearing ear protectors.
wearing
We'll
it,
go on that, the very scientific,
Got earmuffs on.
yeah, very scientific thing we would call it, the ear protectors. Thank you for that. I like to know, I do just facts. I just like facts. Okay. All right, let's see if I can put some more green. You can see how many pencils and colours I get out. So again, putting that green on is a bit too strong. Here, it's greyer green. Just altering it constantly as we go along. Under here. So I want to make sure that I do see these different folds in the skin. And that's going to be by using the different colours as well as shading. I see some grape. Might be a bit hard. No, where was that carmine, that browny colour? I can see browny colours in here. You can see all these fabulous colours that come out from what just looks like a green lizard. Don't like that too much, let's soften that. Bit too harsh. Darker green. We have the green bit here. I've not yet put any scales on. I'll just drop those on possibly at the end. I need to thin that. That shape wasn't quite right. And it's probably a bit harsh. Let's just softly, gently go over this. A darker colour coming over his shoulder. Now what I can see is where the light's hitting, so the light is hitting here, and what it does create is some really nice shadow. So that is why it attracted me to this image, is been able to get this fabulous shadow. So what I want to also do is make sure that I show that the light is hitting the lizard by making some really, the light areas I can see on the back here. So this leg. And I had to count the toes, so when I was drawing it, I was counting toes because I couldn't work out, because from the photograph it's really blurred, what you can actually see. So I could see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and on this one I couldn't see where they were going, but I think I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on here, and again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on there. You can't see 5 on this one, so I'm not that bothered, but I didn't want to be putting extra toes on where they're not, because that sometimes just makes it look that bit odd. So light is just catching here on his back. And I put that white pastel pencil on, and I actually quite like it as an outline. I can go over it, and it does disappear with the pencil. But I actually quite like that lighter outline when it's finished. So that was a surprise, because I was planning on making sure that disappeared. And that's when I also discovered that you can erase the coloured pencil, because I was trying to take off the lines that I had, and I was going into it like this, and actually discovered it also takes the pencil back, which again is really useful to know, because it means that if you've made a mistake or there's an area you want to correct, you can easily do that. It might not work with other pencils, but it definitely works with these, and it works on this paper.
A couple of minutes then, Anita.
Okay, so like I say, this is a 3-part demo. This is just putting some nice layers on some nice colours. I'm not putting detail, and to be honest, I'll probably not put a lot of detail on this. I don't think it needs it if you've got the colours, but some areas will need a little bit of defining, because it does have scales, it does have sharp claws. So those are the features which you can bring out, but I think you can have a lot of fun with colours. How long, sorry Gary?
About a minute.
About a minute. Okay, so I'll probably leave it there, because I need to be able to finish off this part and then do the background. I made a real mess with my pencils. I'm going to have to put them all back, spend another hour putting them back. But you'll see, and I've probably put more colours out, and you can see how many colours I've just used on that small section, and colours you wouldn't expect to use, like the violets and some of the reds, which I'm going to put in the skin. So sometimes it's not, everything's not just not green. There's many other colours that you can put in, and it doesn't really matter. You'll feel what colours look right. So I hope you enjoyed that, and join me at 1:30 for the second part of this demo. So that's goodbye from me, and that's goodbye from the audience.
Bye.